you said. So I would like to come to Tulanana. The audience actually like interactivity, especially in the news industry. And with metaverse, the news is expected to be more engaging. Virtual reality practices will help the audience to involve in the story emotionally as well. So in this sense, do you think that the metaverse would be a game changer in the media industry?
I think it does. I think already we are seeing the signs of that. As I said, with the New York Times, the story, but I could also point out specifically with augmented reality, for example. We had an Indian journalist, Yasmin Omar, who used augmented reality filters, the Snapchat filters that we see and we use every day, to conserve the dignity of young girls who had previously faced sexual abuse. So normally if a man is going to interview a young girl, it's quite difficult to kind of get across, right?
To communicate.
It's to communicate, right? She's maybe not sharing as much. But what he did was he gave them his phone and they got to choose their own filters to cover their face, to cover their dignity. And from there, they were able to share their story, right? We're seeing stories where I think the metaverse allows for more experiential journalism. So journalism can essentially take its form as pieces, long form pieces. So imagine having an augmented reality photojournalism piece, right? Where you have photographs that people can point their phone towards, and when you've pointed, a story comes out of that, and the next and the next and the next. But also I believe there's going to be co-invention between the machines and the journalists themselves, especially with artificial intelligence. And we're seeing that now even. We're seeing that in the likes of GPT-3. My co-founder, for example, wrote an article with an artificial intelligence app, that's GPT-3. So you type in what it is that you want to write, and it searches the net and puts together the story with you. It's a co-invention, it's not a replacement. Because often when we think about the metaverse, I know we think mostly it's just VR, but there's augmented reality, AI, machine learning. And we're seeing that as something that we can co-invent with and not replace jobs as people are worried about.
So are you already using OnaStories, that's the co-founder?
Yeah, so we're already experimenting with these things as OnaStories. As I said, we wrote an article with an artificial intelligence machine. We've done there's a better version application called DAL-E, and where you actually, I think maybe some of you have seen it on Twitter, maybe you can describe the picture that you want or the art that you want in the style that you want, and the computer generates a photorealistic version of that. Think of what that will do in the art industry, for example. You essentially can say to it, I want a dog sitting in the moon with the president so-and-so in the style of Van Gogh, right? And that becomes an NFT piece that you can create. So it's a matter of looking at it like, how can we work together? How can we put these pieces together? But most of all, when you talk about the metaverse, I want to go back to the question you asked, Glenn. When we talk about the metaverse and whether journalism can be virtual, I'm always asking myself, does it need to? What for? Because if it's there to elevate what journalism does, which is to be the watchdog, the fourth estate, to entertain, to educate, to investigate stories, right? Then fine, that's wonderful. But we must be very careful how we do it, so that it's not just a matter of just getting the audiences to just click, the clickbait of it all. Are we using it to advance the level of journalism? And that's the question you have to keep on asking, because at the end of the day, it's about the storytelling. All of these are just platforms. Yeah.
Exactly. So Glenn, your digital strategy, so I'm also curious, how do you think the metaverse would impact journalism, and what should be the main strategy for news companies in terms of this?
So many brands are realizing that now is the time for them to begin to build a presence in the metaverse. And TRT is to be commended because this isn't the first time that they've hosted an event where they've talked about the metaverse, which means they're very forward-thinking. And journalists around the world, like brands around the world, have got to be thinking now about how do we do our journalism. And an excellent point was made. It's not about creating clickbait. It's about telling real stories. The difference between a reporter and a journalist, and they may blend and they may blur, but the reality is a journalist digs deep to find a story that's authentic, that's truthful. And I think that journalists at this particular moment need to do what all of us are doing. Explore within the metaverse. But understand there are opportunities there. As I said, I just happened to hear someone mention virtual real estate. And so in the metaverse, walked up to the gentleman and said, what can you tell me? What are you doing with this? How is it that this makes sense? I said, I rent my store in the metaverse to NFT artists. And it helped me understand reporters can do the same. Journalists can do the same. Attend a big event that's there. When Ariana Grande has a concert and 70 million people attended, there's opportunities to follow up for journalism to ask what's happening there and what great shifts. How do we all prepare for this?
Yeah, but Tulanana, if I come to you, there is a discussion. I mean, there is a challenge for journalism. Like there are criticisms that say the line separating witness, audience, and participants fade in virtual world. So, what is your response to this?
I think it can be blurry, but once again, are we using it for the story? Because if then we're doing that, then I think even if the lines are kind of blurry, because it's not different than when a reporter is in the field doing a TV story or radio story and is saying to the camera, to you and me at home, follow me. And as you're going, you're discovering. As you're going into the trenches, you're feeling what they're feeling. I don't feel that it's going to be much different than that. As you said, as Glenn said, it's about finding the angle of the story in the metaverse, whether that works or not. But what I'm very interested in is making sure that we also have represented voices in the metaverse. That's something that, as it's growing, as it's emerging, I'm wondering to myself, as someone coming from Tanzania, from Africa, where are the African voices? Where are the young women's voices in these platforms? Are we thinking about how these technologies are going to work for African storytelling, and more so for young journalists that are coming up? I know for sure, for example, there are no, at least in my country, there is no curriculum that's teaching us AI, AR, and the like, right? But even if it does, I'm asking myself then, what is it for? And then also, is it sustainable? Newsrooms across the world are having issues of sustainability, right? Finding the right business models that work for them, right? Because audiences are getting less and less inclined to pay for their news.
Also accessibility.
Right? And accessibility as well. So if everything I'm getting is from digital media, if print sales are low, if airtime sales are low, right? What's a business model that's working? And mind you, it's not going to be a one card fits all, right? What will work in the States will not work for Turkey, will not work for Tanzania, and the like. So how are we finding those business models, media business models that are going to work for us? And again, it's all about experiential. We have to just keep experimenting until we find the right models.
Yeah. I mean, this is a great conversation. I wish we could talk hours, but I mean, we are running out of the time. So I would like to kindly ask your last remarks, if possible. Glenn?
There's no one metaverse. There are metaverses.
Yes, yeah.
And they're evolving. And as they evolve, we should be evolving. And you shouldn't think of mixed reality as something that's happening over there. It's happening all around us. You need to be a stakeholder in there, and you need to... TRT, again, is doing a beautiful job of helping people understand what's happening. But realize everyone who's in the metaverse space, the extended reality space, is a student. And I hope that you'll become one of the stakeholders, because you're a stakeholder, whether you realize it or not, who steps forward to say, I want to learn a little bit more about this because I have something important to say wherever in the world I am. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
the invention of the future starts today. And so it's only by us experimenting, getting it wrong, failing forward, is when we're going to figure it out altogether. But once again, it's about the story, and it's about the audience. If it's not serving the story, then I wouldn't want to go any more further with it. And then also it's about sustainability. We need to figure out how to make these models sustainable, whether it's in the real world or in the metaverse.
And maybe accessible, right?
And accessible as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you
so
very much,
Thank you.
the audience.
Thank you.
So I will give the floor to my colleague Efendioğlu for the next session. Thank you.
Very insightful. Thank you.